Winter 1944, Poltava Air Base, Ukrainian SSR. The air itself seemed frozen that winter. Even the sound of distant engines hung heavy, trapped between layers of snow and steel. Smoke from the refueling pits crawled low over the ground like ghosts reluctant to rise. Every man on the base moved slower, their boots crunching through crusted ice that never melted, their faces hidden behind scarves stiff with frost. Only one man seemed untouched by the cold, Senior Engineer Aleksandr Volkov. He stood at the edge of the runway, watching a crippled convoy of American bombers limp in from the west. The Allied shuttle route, Operation Frantic, had turned Poltava into a temporary crossroads of two worlds, the pragmatic Soviet front and the confident American flyers who crossed oceans to bomb Germany. But the collaboration was fragile. The Soviets distrusted the Americans' smiles. The Americans feared the Soviets' silence. Between them lay wreckage. One of those wrecks landed crooked in the snow that afternoon. A P-51 Mustang, its tail dragging like a broken wing of a bird. The nose had kissed the runway, the propeller twisted into a shape no craftsman intended. Steam hissed from bullet-pierced radiators. The ground crew labeled it scrap before the engine even cooled. If you love stories like this, real courage, real history, then don't just watch, become part of it. Subscribe now to WW2 Frontline Legends and stand with the people who keep this history alive. Every like, every share, every comment helps us honor those who lived these moments and shows your support for the hard work that goes into bringing these forgotten stories back to life. So hit that subscribe button, join our community, and tell us where you're watching from. Together, we're not just remembering history, we're keeping it alive. Volkov approached while others turned away. He brushed snow from the cowling and ran a glove along the dented fuselage. Beneath grime and smoke, the aircraft still shimmered faintly, as though proud of what it once was. He could almost feel the machine's heartbeat, weak, irregular, but stubbornly alive. For him, that was enough. The Americans saw a failure of metal. Volkov saw a challenge sent by destiny, or perhaps by punishment. Exile had taught him to see meaning in broken things. Years earlier, he had designed experimental engines for Yakovlev's bureau, engines that promised power with elegance. Then politics had intervened. His younger brother, a party idealist, had been caught in the storm of Stalin's purges. One accusation was enough. One signature sealed both their fates. The brother was executed. Aleksandr was relocated. No trial. No explanation. Now, instead of drafting blueprints in Moscow, he repaired wrecks in the snow. But when he touched the Mustang's frame, he felt the pulse of something different. Beauty built by an enemy of ideology, not of war. He whispered, "So this is America's pride. Let's see if it can survive Russia." His breath drifted into steam, vanishing before anyone could hear. That night, the hangar became his world. The lamps gave off a pale orange halo, dim against the icy walls. Blueprints from both nations lay scattered on his bench. Yak, 3 schematics beside an American maintenance manual smuggled from an abandoned crew tent. The handwriting of 2 civilizations intertwined in the dust. He worked until dawn, measuring, comparing, calculating. The Merlin engine fascinated him. Its cooling system, elegant but wasteful, expelled more heat than the Soviets could tolerate. To Volkov, that waste looked like opportunity. He sketched new vents, new duct angles, a Venturi tunnel that might reclaim lost energy. The Mustang had strength but no discipline. He would give it both. Outside, the temperature fell to 20 below. The wind keened across the plain like artillery shells screaming from far away. Volkov barely noticed. Each bolt he turned felt like redemption. Each idea scribbled on scrap paper erased a little of the shame the state had stamped on him. He no longer worked for superiors, or for victory, or even for Stalin. He worked for the machine itself, for the art of flight. When morning came, the hangar smelled of kerosene and burned coffee. The other mechanics stumbled in, bleary-eyed, muttering that Volkov was mad. They called the Mustang his ghost. He didn't answer. His eyes were bright, feverish, alive in a way they hadn't been in years. Before we go further into this forgotten chapter of World War II, take a moment to join the mission. If stories like this, of lost machines, hidden geniuses, and impossible courage, move you, subscribe to WW2 Frontline Legends right now, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Texas, London, Sydney, Warsaw. I read every single one. Now back to Poltava, 1944. Days turned into weeks. Supply convoys arrived and departed. News from the front came in fragments. Cities liberated, cities lost again. Inside Hangar 12, Volkov's Mustang slowly shed its scars. He scavenged parts from crashed La-5s and Yak-9s, forging hybrid components no manual could describe. Soviet steel replaced American alloys. Soviet hands reshaped foreign precision into rugged endurance. A new creature emerged, neither Western nor Eastern, a fusion of necessity and genius. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Volkov would pause and listen. Outside, the guns on the horizon muttered like distant thunder. He imagined the Mustang soaring above that sound, slicing through clouds untouchable. It was more than imagination, it was hunger. The engineer wanted to see it live. He wanted to prove that brilliance could exist without permission. He filed reports claiming, testing in progress. No one questioned him. Bureaucracy was slower than winter. When inspectors passed through, he draped tarps over the plane and labeled it non-operational. Only a handful of workers knew what he was truly building, and they stayed silent out of awe or fear. At night, the lamplight flickered on the Mustang's polished nose. The red Soviet primer clashed with surviving American silver, giving it a strange, two-toned camouflage, as if even the paint couldn't decide which side it belonged to. Volkov liked it that way. It reflected his own divided soul. He re-angled the radiator inlet, reshaped the exhaust flow, and modified the propeller's pitch. Each change risked failure. Each success whispered promise. He kept a small notebook hidden in his coat, its pages smudged with grease and calculations. He titled it Project Phoenix, the Russian word for phoenix. One evening, a young mechanic approached timidly with tea. The engineer didn't look up. "You'll freeze," the boy said. Volkov replied without turning. "Better to freeze building something that flies than thaw doing nothing." The boy never forgot that line. By February, the Mustang stood whole again. Its canopy gleamed. The new engine purred when tested by hand crank. It was no longer the proud American icon that had arrived months earlier. It was leaner, meaner, somehow alive. On its tail, Volkov painted a small emblem in chalk, a single wing rising from fire. Then he rubbed it away, leaving only faint ashes behind. Some things, he thought, were meant to stay secret. Outside, snow fell again, softer now, hiding the scars of the airfield. Trucks rumbled in the distance, carrying wounded soldiers and empty fuel drums. The war was changing shape. No one could tell which way it would turn next. Volkov closed the hangar doors, sealing himself inside with his creation. The lamplight flickered once, casting his shadow across the aircraft's silver skin. For a fleeting second, man and machine looked the same. Two survivors built from fragments, both waiting for another chance to rise. He ran his fingers along the leading edge of the wing, whispering a quiet oath not even he understood. Outside, the wind answered with a low moan through the rafters, like distant applause. The next morning, witnesses said the hangar doors opened wide, sunlight pouring in like revelation. The Mustang stood ready, engine cowling reattached, markings erased. Where the Americans had seen failure, a Soviet exile had found purpose. And though no official record marked the moment, every man who glimpsed that resurrected fighter felt it. Something impossible had been reborn. Volkov stepped back, eyes burning from exhaustion and pride. The propeller twitched in the breeze, one blade catching the light. It looked almost as if the plane was breathing. He didn't yet know that what he built would soon vanish into cloud and legend, and that somewhere over the frozen heart of Europe, it would write his name across the sky before disappearing forever. February 1944, Poltava Air Base, Ukrainian SSR. The dawn came late and colorless. Thin frost glazed the hangar windows, muting the light so completely that lamps burned even after sunrise. For the first time in weeks, Volkov allowed himself to rest. The hybrid Mustang stood complete, its surface glimmering with a faint mix of red primer and bare aluminum. The smell of fuel and cold metal filled the air like incense at a sacred altar. To him, it was holy ground. He had worked in silence for months, moving between exhaustion and obsession, ignoring orders that had nothing to do with his creation. Every hammer strike and rivet echo carried the weight of defiance. But war tolerated no secrets for long. Two black cars appeared that morning at the edge of the runway, their tires cracking the frozen mud. No insignia, no warmth. Only a red star, painted on the license plates. The men who stepped out wore long gray coats, their faces unreadable. The NKVD had arrived. Volkov watched them from the hangar door, his hands hidden in his pockets. He knew what that visit meant. Whenever the secret police came unannounced, Someone's life was about to vanish into paperwork. They walked toward him slowly, boots striking the ice in perfect rhythm. The tallest officer stopped 3 paces away. His gloves were immaculate, his expression casual. "Senior Engineer Aleksandr Volkov?" A nod. "Your work has attracted attention," the officer said. "You've been using foreign parts, foreign designs, and," he paused, inspecting the Mustang, "perhaps foreign loyalties." Volkov said nothing. Silence was safer than denial. The officer gestured toward the aircraft. "You are not authorized to modify Allied property, especially not American. We will confiscate this for investigation." Something twisted in Volkov's chest. They would dismantle it, study it, destroy it. Months of labor would disappear in a bureaucrat's report. Yet before he could answer, the air base sirens wailed. A long, rising scream that froze every man where he stood. Bombers. The sound arrived seconds later, deep, rolling thunder from the west. German reconnaissance planes had slipped through the morning haze, followed by fast-moving bombers. Anti-aircraft guns roared to life. The officers ducked instinctively as the first explosions tore through the far end of the runway. Black plumes clawed upward, snow and dirt raining down like ash. Volkov didn't move. He looked at the Mustang. Its canopy reflected the flames. In that reflection, he saw his chance. He ran. Inside the hangar, mechanics scrambled for cover. The engineer climbed onto the wing, checking the fuel lines by instinct alone. The NKVD officers shouted orders behind him, their voices lost in the rising chaos. Shards of glass fell like sleet from the ceiling. A shadow crossed the hangar floor, a single-engine fighter diving low overhead. The thunder of its engine rattled tools on the benches. Volkov ducked, heart pounding. He knew Poltava could be wiped off the map within minutes. And then fate intervened. A figure emerged through the smoke, Captain Yuri Donskoy, a decorated pilot known for surviving 6 crashes and returning each time grinning like a madman. He had been grounded after his last mission, waiting for another aircraft. The chaos gave him an excuse. He saw the Mustang, the strange red-silver hybrid glinting under flickering light, and saw the engineer crouched beside it. Without a word, Donskoy climbed the ladder and dropped into the cockpit. His gloves brushed snow from the gauges. "Fuel," he shouted, though Volkov couldn't hear him. The engineer pointed at the line, half full. "Good enough." The propeller turned once, twice. The modified Merlin coughed, sputtered, then roared like thunder trapped in a cage. Sparks flashed from the exhaust as Volkov yanked away the chocks. The NKVD officers ran toward the hangar, waving pistols, screaming for him to stop. But Donskoy was already rolling. The fighter jolted forward, wheels bumping over cratered ice, the tail lifting into the smoke. He was airborne before the officers reached the doors. Outside, the sky was chaos, columns of smoke rising from the barracks, tracer fire stitching through clouds. The Mustang banked sharply, climbing with impossible speed. Volkov stood in the hangar doorway, watching his creation rise higher than the Soviet fighters scrambling from the adjacent field. The modified radiator screamed as air rushed through the Venturi tunnel, the very sound vibrating the ground beneath him. For a heartbeat, the engineer felt alive again. Then he saw the pursuing specks in the distance, 3 Bf-109s, slicing through the haze. The Mustang turned toward them. It was madness. 1 against 3. But Donskoy had a reputation for madness. The first German fighter fired, bullets cutting bright paths through the fog. The Mustang rolled, ducking the line of fire. Its movements were faster than any of the mechanics had ever seen. Volkov realized with a shock that his calculations had worked. The redirected heat flow created a burst of additional thrust during dives. The plane wasn't just repaired, it was reborn. The Germans dove again. The Mustang climbed, then flipped inverted, rolling through their formation. One burst from its machine guns, and the lead 109 exploded in a bloom of black smoke. The second hesitated, misjudged the Mustang's climb, and collided with its wingman. The sky erupted in 2 simultaneous flashes. Donskoy vanished into the clouds. For a few long minutes, there was only silence. Then a single shape reemerged, trailing thin smoke but still flying. The hybrid Mustang. It circled once above the burning base, dipping its wing toward the hangar, as if saluting the man who had given it life. Volkov stood motionless, face streaked with soot, eyes reflecting the flame-colored sky. Around him, men shouted, trucks burned, papers scattered like snow. But he heard only the rhythm of the engine fading into the distance. The NKVD officers found him there minutes later, still staring upward. They demanded explanations, reports, orders. He said nothing. They confiscated his notes, tore through his workshop, photographed every blueprint. But the aircraft was gone, and without it they had nothing. Volkov was placed under temporary observation, a phrase that could mean exile, imprisonment, or worse. For days, he remained silent in a small office at the edge of the base, writing statements he knew no one would read. Yet late each night he heard whispers from the pilots who had seen the battle. They swore the strange Mustang had downed 3 109s in less than 2 minutes before disappearing eastward. Some said Donskoy had landed safely at a forward strip. Others claimed he had gone rogue, chasing the enemy alone into cloud and lightning. No one knew for certain. When the smoke finally cleared from Poltava, investigators tallied the damage: dozens of aircraft lost, fuel depots in ruins. Yet amid the destruction, rumors spread faster than fire. A single American fighter, rebuilt by a disgraced Soviet engineer, had defended the base when nothing else could. The story reached nearby units, then Moscow, then vanished behind classified files. Official reports called it unconfirmed. But soldiers at the front told it differently. A ghost plane saved Poltava. Volkov returned to his hangar under guard. His tools were gone, his drawings confiscated, his benches empty. Only oil stains remained on the floor where the Mustang once stood. He sat there for hours, tracing the marks with his fingertips, memorizing every line. They couldn't erase memory. They couldn't unmake what had already flown. Outside, snow began to fall again, muffling the ruins of the airfield. The world resumed its indifferent rhythm. Orders shouted, engines started, lives continued. But for Volkov, something fundamental had shifted. He had witnessed perfection for a moment, a perfect machine, a perfect flight, a perfect defiance, and now nothing could match it. The NKVD eventually left, reassigned to more urgent duties on the front. They took with them his reports, his past, and his peace. But they left behind a whisper. Somewhere out there, beyond the clouds, a hybrid Mustang still flew under Soviet markings. No one had seen it land. Some nights, when the base quieted and the wind fell still, the mechanics swore they could hear it, the faint rumble of an engine high above the steppe, circling, watching. And in the dark of his small quarters, Volkov would close his eyes and imagine it gliding overhead, loyal only to the sky itself. He smiled once barely. The world might forget his name. The state might erase his work. But he knew the truth. A machine built from fragments had become a legend. April 1944, Eastern Front skies. Weeks passed after the Poltava raid, but the hybrid Mustang never returned. At first the silence felt temporary. Pilots vanished and reappeared all the time in war. Yet days became weeks, and every night the base commander scanned the horizon for a silhouette that never came home. Volkov said little. His eyes, once alive with purpose, now reflected only the glow of his kerosene lamp. The hangar was empty, the workbench swept clean. The machine that had carried his redemption was gone, and with it the thin thread of forgiveness he'd woven for himself. Still, the rumors would not die. Frontline units from Lviv to Minsk began reporting a strange aircraft in the clouds, silver, fast, unlike anything in Soviet service. Some claimed it bore red stars painted over foreign markings. Others swore it attacked German convoys from impossible angles, vanishing into fog before pursuit arrived. The Luftwaffe called it Der Geist von Poltava, the ghost of Poltava. To the men below, it was either miracle or myth. To Volkov, if he ever heard those whispers, it was proof that his creation still lived. May 1944, occupied Poland. Convoy K-12 moved cautiously along a forest road outside Lublin, headlights blacked out beneath thin veils of cloud. Trucks hauled ammunition toward the front. Panzer IVs guarded the flanks. The commander stood in his half-track, scanning the tree line. The night was calm, too calm. Then came the sound, a distant, rising whine that no German pilot recognized. A single burst of machine gun fire split the darkness. The lead truck exploded, scattering men and timber alike. The convoy opened fire blindly, but the attacker was already gone. No engine drone, no shadow, just wind. Hours later, Luftwaffe intelligence logged another report of an unidentified high-speed fighter operating without IFF signal, presumed enemy. No wreckage, no prisoner, only rumors. In those same days, Allied intercept stations in Italy noted odd chatter in German radio networks, pilots complaining about a captured American plane flying for the Russians. None of them knew that deep inside that machine's heart beat the modified Merlin that Aleksandr Volkov had rebuilt with his own hands. July 1944, Poltava. Summer returned to the steppe. Grass grew over craters. The airfield's scars healed faster than the men who worked there. Volkov remained on site, officially reassigned to maintenance, unofficially forgotten. He kept to himself, writing small equations on scraps of paper, testing theoretical improvements that would never leave the hangar. Sometimes he looked west, toward the horizon where his Mustang had vanished. One evening, a courier plane landed with sealed documents. Among them was an envelope marked Restricted, Air Directorate. Inside lay a single sheet describing an intercepted transmission from Allied Command. Unknown aircraft operating near Dresden. Serial No. AF 1127 partially visible. Performance exceeds P-51 standard. Engagement outcome classified. Volkov read the numbers twice. AF 1127. The same sequence once etched on the Mustang's frame before he sanded it away. His hands trembled. Somewhere far to the west, amid the wreckage of Europe, his creation still breathed. He folded the paper and placed it in his coat pocket. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat by the open hangar door listening to the summer rain, wondering if Yuri Donskoy was still alive, or if the machine itself had outlived the man. Perhaps that was the destiny of all great inventions, to survive their makers. Spring 1945, Germany's collapse. The Red Army thundered across the Vistula. Every day brought new victories, new ruins, new ghosts. Volkov was ordered west with a technical inspection unit assigned to examine captured German aircraft. He rode in silence, notebook tucked inside his jacket. The closer they came to the front, the more familiar the sounds grew. Engines, explosions, wind. Everything he had lived for and lost. In April they reached the outskirts of Dresden, now a skeleton of stone and ash. Among the smoldering wrecks near the Elbe River lay dozens of destroyed planes, their wings melted into the ground. One, half buried in mud, caught Volkov's eye. It was smaller than the rest, its frame twisted, its surface scorched. On the tail, faint beneath layers of soot, he saw the ghost of an American serial number, AF 1127, and beside it, barely visible, a painted red star. He knelt beside the wreck, heart hammering. The engine cowling was gone, but fragments of the modified radiator remained. The same Venturi structure he had invented months before. The metal was warped but unmistakable. This was his creation. It had come home. No one else on the inspection team noticed the significance. To them it was scrap, another curiosity in a landscape of ruin. Volkov didn't correct them. He simply brushed the dust from the wing and whispered a single word in Russian, Phoenix. He never wrote another report after that day. He turned in his papers, left the unit, and disappeared into the chaos of post-war Europe. Some said he boarded a train east and never arrived. Others claimed he defected west, carrying his notebook across the border. No document confirmed either. Months after the victory celebrations faded, an internal Soviet memo crossed a forgotten desk in Moscow. Recovered wreck near Dresden. Unidentified P-51 variant. Engine modifications of unknown origin. Performance exceeded all known specifications. The file was stamped archive, do not circulate, and buried. Volkov's name appeared nowhere. History moved on, indifferent. Pilots who trained in the Cold War era sometimes spoke of a design anomaly buried deep in early jet age manuals, an airflow correction based on captured wartime research. No one knew its author, but its geometry mirrored Volkov's forgotten sketches. Even in anonymity, his work endured. A retired American engineer visiting a museum in Moscow once paused before a small display of mixed aircraft parts. An American propeller blade bolted to a Soviet radiator core. The placard read only, Origin Unknown, Eastern Front, 1944. He looked closer at the metal, at the faint engraving almost lost to corrosion, AV. He smiled, not knowing why, and moved on. Some stories end neatly. This one doesn't. No grave bears Volkov's name. No citation honors Captain Donskoy. The Mustang that bridged two worlds became a rumor swallowed by snow and time. Yet every mechanic who has ever turned a wrench in faith of possibility owes something to that winter in Poltava. For in that forgotten hangar, one man defied politics, fear, and the limits of metal. He proved that genius can be exiled but not erased, that even in the coldest years of war, creativity burns brighter than ideology. A broken machine became a legend, a disgraced engineer became immortal in silence. And sometimes, on still nights over the Ukrainian plains, old farmers swear they hear it, a low, rolling thunder fading across the stars. Maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe, somewhere beyond history's reach, the ghost of Poltava still flies. If this story moved you, if you felt the chill of that winter hangar, the roar of that reborn engine, and the quiet pride of a forgotten hero, then join us here on WW2 Frontline Legends. Like this video, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe for more untold wartime stories that still echo through time. And before you go, tell us in the comments where you're watching from: Texas, London, Sydney, Warsaw, Manila. Our community stretches across the world, and I read every single one. Because history isn't just in books. It's in voices like yours keeping these legends alive.